Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. Your home for fleet solutions, aiming to inform, pioneer, and entertain the tire world in connected industries. Sponsored by East Bay Tire, keeping essential industries moving forward.
Around the Bead is back. Mics are hot, and we are here with episode 1 of the Material Handling series featuring Phil Jantraovic, the material handling forklift tire expert of the universe. Maybe that's a little bold, but I believe it, Phil. Phil, welcome to the podcast. Are you ready to kick the tires?
I'm ready to kick the tires, Joe.
So we got a lot to talk about, but let's give our viewers a little bit. I mean, you've sold everything that's solid. You've serviced tires, you've built tires, which I really want to get into. But give us a little start in the industry. Where'd you begin? How'd you get here?
Yeah, sure. So, Joe, I served in the Navy from 1989 to 1993. When I got out of the Navy,
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. When I got out of the Navy, I went to the Unemployment Bureau in Akron, Ohio, and I said, I'm looking for job placement. So what happened is a career counselor at Ohio Unemployment Bureau, they sent me down to Trelleborg Wheel Systems in Hartville, Ohio.
What year is this?
1993.
1993, okay.
And in any event, the criteria at that time to get a job there was you had to be able to lift 70 pounds and utilize hand tools. So, fast forward 32 years, and here we are.
Bam.
Damn.
So you can lift 70 pounds. You got the job. It sounds like 2005. If you could fog a mirror, we could find a role for you. But what's building a tire like? This is building solid tires, right?
Yes, sir. Joe, I tell anybody who'd care to hear me out, building tires isn't rocket science,
Yeah.
but it definitely is skilled labor. It requires, it's a labor-intensive job, but by the same token, it also requires a tremendous amount of attention to detail. Mm-hmm. And it is skilled labor.
And you did that for how many years?
I did that for roughly half of my professional career. I'd say about 15 years.
Okay. Now, I've always lived in a world where there's solid tires on forklifts, solid pneumatics and banded solids. Can you give us any history on where did those come from? Because it wasn't always that way. I mean, you had pneumatic tires for a long time on forklifts before someone said, "Hey, we need a solid tire."
Yeah. So a company based out of Chicago, Illinois, called Bearcat Tire. They were the first company to produce what we know today as being a pneumatic-shaped solid tire.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they brought it to the market. It predates me, and there was a period of time where solid tires were not industry acceptable. But today we see them on virtually all forklifts out there.
And Bearcat, there's also Bearcat. There was in Australia for many, many years. Weird correlation or irony there. They were building tires, solid tires, in the United States at the time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And today, for most of the viewers, almost every solid tire is produced in Sri Lanka.
That is correct.
Yeah. So a banded solid, what problem did that solve? I mean, it's commonplace now. I'd say it's even gaining market share, but we're talking about a steel band internal is pressed onto a solid wheel.
Yep. So first and foremost, two different types of solid tires for use in material handling: the banded solid, or a rubber press-on tire, as they could be called, or even a cushion tire, they could be called. Those tires are utilized primarily for internal use. So think warehouses.
Yeah, okay.
And then when we talk about a pneumatic-shaped solid or a resilient tire, we're thinking more outdoor industrial type use.
Okay. And these tires have stages of rubber, is that correct?
In the case of the pneumatic-shaped solid, yes, sir.
But not in a press-on?
Pretty much
or
in
a
a
cushion?
pretty much in a press-on tire, what you get is you get one rubber compound from base band outside diameter of the tire. There are some manufacturers that'll wrap a black compound, an initial black compound around the base band.
Yeah.
The claim is that it makes the tire run cooler, when in all actuality, I think actually what it serves is it serves to improve their adhesion to the base band.
Interesting. Okay. So why, on a solid pneumatic, why are there multiple stages of rubber?
It's comfort, it's payload protection.
Yeah.
Is what it amounts to, and and probably really the most important aspect is heat is the number one enemy of a solid tire or a tire period, and the cooler that we can keep that tire running, ultimately the longer the rubber will last.
Does a 3-stage, which is my understanding is the premium, the gold standard in today's industry, does the 3-stage solid help keep the tire cool?
Absolutely.
Why not a 4-stage? Why not a 5-stage?
Well, it's funny you say that, Joe, because in a different life, I purchased tires abroad from a company that went to the market, and they publicized that they made a four-stage tire and even a 5-stage tire, and there's a certain element of sizzle to that, but it might be a little bit deceptive. In other words, what I'm saying is with your typical 3-stage tire, what you have is you have a hard rubber base or the mounting surface of the tire.
Yeah.
Then you have the rubber that meets the road, and right in the center, what you have is you have a soft inner core. Those are what I would call the functional components of that tire. In the case of a 4-stage tire, what the manufacturer's doing is they're disguising that they're using a material called friction by going ahead and encasing it in a hard natural rubber.
What is friction?
Friction is it's a material that is basically a recycled compound that it's just very hard. It serves as a mounting base for a tire, but outside of providing that mounting base, there's no real purpose to it.
A 2-stage versus a 3-stage, we'll just group them as that. What's a variation or performance difference you could see in the same application?
Well, I think where I'd start with, Joe, is I would tell you that with the technology that we have in tires today, and the fact that 3-stage tires are fairly commonplace, I would say to you that I would only utilize a 2-stage tire if I were placing that tire in a very low usage application.
Okay.
3-stage tire is going to be the workhorse. That's where we're going to want to place the majority of tires.
I asked that question coming from the viewpoint that I think a lot of fleets can look at it and go, it's black, it's round, it's solid, it doesn't get flats, they're all the same. So from a performance difference, how much variation, like when we look at a truck tire on a Class 8 truck, you could see mileage anywhere from 50,000 miles to 250,000 miles. On a solid tire, if the best tire performs at 100, where would some of the cheaper tires land?
If I had to guess, if I were pressed, I would probably say that you probably get about 40% more out of a 3-stage tire versus
a 2-stage.
Versus a 2-stage.
That's substantial.
Yeah, I think so.
So I was told this a long time ago, and I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. I was told that a perfect tire could be built when it came to solid tires, that you could make the best compound. It could last forever. Not necessarily forever, but sure. Maybe even the lifetime of the forklift. It'd just be too expensive and nobody would buy it.
Joe, I think that I'd be inclined to believe that. I think that we have very, very smart people who have been working in this industry for a long time that could make the perfect tire.
But that's unique to material handling. When I think about it, that doesn't exist with truck tires, doesn't exist with earth mover tires or ag tires. You're not building something that could last forever.
Right.
But in the material handling space, you could if you're willing to pay for it.
You could if you're willing to pay for it. Yeah.
Okay. So not just black and round, not just solid in 2-stage versus 3-stage, but there's non-marking tires, which are different colors. There's polyurethanes. There's anti-static. Give us a breakdown of what else is out there.
Yeah. So, Joe, in the case of a black tire, a conventional black tire, that tire is black because the strengthening agent in that rubber is a material called carbon black.
Okay.
In the case of a white or a gray non-marking tire, there's no carbon black.
Or a yellow or a green.
Or a yellow or a green tire.
Let's pause there real quick. Okay, so the non-marking tires come in a bunch of different colors. Is there any performance difference between them?
No, not at all. In a previous podcast, we had discussed aperture holes and what their function is and whatnot. And what I would tell you is with regard to, I guess let's just talk about a white tire or an off-white tire versus a gray tire.
Yeah,
it's just really preference.
What about anti-static and polyurethanes?
Yeah, so Joe, the first comment with regard to polyurethane is I think it's helpful. At one point in time in my career, somebody did a very good job of saying that, if you think of poly as being a product that picks up where rubber leaves off,
yeah,
I think that's a very good way of describing polyurethane product. What you have is you have a product that's capable of carrying substantially more weight. I think the number is like 54% increased load carrying capacity over a rubber tire, but what you have is you have a tremendously hard tire, and if those tires aren't constantly turning, they have a tendency to go ahead and flat spot. So the idea is that polyurethane can last longer, it can carry more weight. Well, why aren't we constantly running on poly? And the reason being is because they're tremendously hard. They're hard on the operator, and they will flat spot if they're not constantly in use.
So, like a pallet jack would be something you use polyurethanes for,
Absolutely.
right? Heavy load, small tire. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anti-static.
Anti-static, it's one of the compounds out there. Joe, when I first broke out into this industry, the manufacturers they were, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, they were job shops. So you had the ability to
Custom shop would be a nicer way.
Yeah, you had the ability to go ahead, and if you had an application that was prone to cutting tires, you had the ability to go ahead and buy rubber compounds that were impregnated with fiberglass in order to go ahead and lessen the effects of cuts in tires. Anti-static was another compound that was out there. There were several different compounds back in the day, and what's ended up happening in our industry as time has gone on is that tire production in this space has become more of a cookie cutter approach to the industry.
Well, I give you a little story. I learned of anti-static when I got a call from a military base, and they said, "Hey, we're moving missiles, right? And we want tires that the whole facility has to be anti-static." And that was the first time I had heard of it. I thought it was the coolest thing, And so yes, there was some production, and it was hard to get. But to your point, solid tires were for a long time a custom shop. And that's the inherent nature of manufacturing in general, is that it's always about getting high production, high volumes, less SKUs, more consistency. But that seemed to me to be a unique space for material handling, is all of these custom applications, custom compounds, custom tires for specific applications.
Yes, sir.
So with that being said, what's some of the hardest applications you've seen?
I'll tell you, Joe, and I think this is probably a really good time to acknowledge some folks that, have been instrumental in my career. When I first transitioned from the factory into sales, I had the great benefit of meeting a couple of guys that were key in my career. I got to start with Frank Pope, who was my sales manager at the time at Trelleborg Wheel Systems. A lady that helped me transition into sales, Janet Algor, who still works for Trelleborg, and then on the customer side of it, huge props goes to Jonathan Kuhn and a gentleman named Junior Kynes, who's no longer with us. But Jonathan Kuhn basically took me under his wing, and what he said to me is he said, Phil, if you're willing to put in the time, I'm willing to teach you applications, and once you learn applications, you'll learn this business, and you'll learn it right. And he didn't fail me.
Yeah.
But in any event, that's the correct way to learn the industry, and that's the way I learned it.
I believe it not just for forklift, but for everything. I mean, every type of tire, we should be focusing on industry and application as opposed to product.
Yes, sir.
So you didn't really answer my question. I love the backstory, but give me one application that's in your top 3 toughest applications for a forklift tire over these last 30 plus years.
I think with it said that these machines are getting bigger and they're getting faster as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the single roughest application I've witnessed was very recently. It was a container board application in the Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
And what I witnessed, it blew my mind. I mean, it was a master class in application. And what it was forklifts that were overloaded. It was forklifts that were running long distances at very high speeds.
Yeah.
These forklifts were so overloaded and running so quickly, the forklifts actually looked like they were skipping across the surface of the warehouse.
How are they overloaded? Because it's different from like a haul truck or a loader. I mean, you're simply picking up more than you should be carrying.
Yep.
I guess is that they got more on the forks than they're supposed to be. They're carrying something heavier.
That was the case in this situation. Yeah, that was the case in this situation. In that container board industry, what you have is you have forklifts that are equipped with attachments. In this case, a paper clamp.
Yeah.
And what they do is they
a cascade clamp.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were picking up these rolls of paper and transporting them a long distance.
They're paper rolls.
Yeah, paper rolls.
And too heavy.
Too heavy. Yes, sir.
And I think this is important for the end user and the fleets out there. I mean, do we know if there was another forklift option and a different clamp option, that it was just a misapplication on the equipment to begin with? Or in some cases, simply there isn't an answer. That's the best possible clamp and forklift option, and we got to do what we can with the application from a tire perspective.
In the container board application, I mean, what'll typically happen is when you see failures in that application, it comes down to the operator trying to move 2 rolls of paper as opposed to 1 roll of paper that they're supposed to move. In this case, it was just that they were running way too fast, and they were maxed out as far as their capacity was concerned to begin with.
Now, if this is the same example that I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago, wasn't there an element of hydraulic fluid on the floor?
There was.
Right.
There was. Yes, sir.
And that was doing what to the tires?
It'll make hydraulic oil or any kind of petroleum product. It'll make the rubber revert.
Revert?
It'll revert. It'll go from a vulcanized state to going back to what that rubber looks like before it's vulcanized or cured.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Like it'll liquefy?
It'll liquefy. Yeah.
Is it all over the floor?
It is. It is. And in this case, Joe, I'm telling you, it was a crazy application. In this case, this end user was physically scraping up rubber that was adhered to the floor surface.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane.
I've seen rubber on floors before, but I've never really picked up hydraulic fluid. Now that makes some sense.
Yes, sir.
Huh. So you're still in the process of trying to find a tire that might help with this application, or is it simply it is what it is?
I think there's a lot of things that can happen. Now I'm old school, and what I mean when I say I'm old school is Jonathan Kuhn taught me that when you go into an application, you don't tell the end user that they need to change their application. You find a solution for them. And like I say, it was easier to do when these custom shops existed.
Yeah.
with deploying additives and whatnot. But I think that there's a certain amount of education that needs to take place. We need to slow these forklifts down first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take care of these hydraulic oil leaks. And then I think that there are still some products out there like high load compounds that we can throw at this application and greatly improve the situation.
How would a poly react with the hydraulic fluid on the floor?
Poly would resist it.
Yeah.
It would definitely resist it. I would only recommend running an 80 durometer poly in the steer axle position on that forklift. And then, you get into operator comfort. In this case, this was a union shop. Maybe the union is going to reject that because the labor force would complain about sore backs and whatnot. But poly would definitely be a step in the right direction.
I certainly agree with your viewpoint and Pope's that it's incumbent upon us to give them a solution from a tire side. But at the same token, I think we can at least have that conversation of, all right, what's the failure rate with everything on your forklift? Whether it's not just tires, it could be the hydraulic lines, it could be everything else from running the operation the way that it is running. Let's look at if you did one roll at a time.
Exactly.
Right? Or if you were to cap the speeds even a few miles per hour less.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think that's Joe, that's part of my job, part of my day-to-day job. These guys they're going so fast that if there's even a momentary distraction, it could be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's big business now. You mentioned the harsher applications coming up more and more because of the size of equipment. What about electrification of equipment? I mean, that's been relatively big. We're seeing that across all industries, and it's having an impact on tires. From a material handling perspective, you've got a variety of different fuels, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Are any of those changing tire wear?
Joe, I don't necessarily see electrification or a battery-operated forklift affecting tire performance. Now, in the case of like hybrid loaders and whatnot, for radial OTR tires, I believe there's been a huge impact. But in the case of forklifts, not so much. What I will say to you is a quality rubber compound. There's a measurement of what's referred to as resilience.
Okay.
And what resilience is it's the rubber's ability to rebound to its originally molded shape. Resilience it's huge, and it's huge whether we're talking about an electric forklift or we're talking about an internal combustion forklift, because the higher the degree of resilience, ultimately what happens is less energy is required to go ahead and place that tire into motion and keep that tire into motion. So the higher the degree of resilience, the less fuel is required in order to run that machine. And a good example of what resilience is when we were kids and we played with super balls.
Yeah.
You bounce that ball and that ball goes up to the ceiling. That's a high degree of resilience.
Is there a correlation between resilience and durometer?
Yeah, there could be. Could be. Yeah.
Okay. And for our audience out there, what is durometer?
Durometer it's a measurement of hardness. Okay. So the scale is air would be 0, steel would be 100, and rubber compounds are going to fall anywhere in between 0 and 100.
Huh.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think since it's material handling 101, we can't disregard pneumatic and specifically radial pneumatic. That being a air-filled tire, the radials having steel belts in them. What applications are a radial pneumatic preferential compared to a solid?
So radial, when we talk about radial pneumatic tires, Michelin actually with their XEM product years ago, probably onwards of 20 years ago, they had a powerful demonstration where they laid out 4x4s on the floor. And the first thing that you got to know about a forklift is there's no suspension in place. So that rubber that serves to provide the suspension for the forklift. And what Michelin did, and like I say, powerfully, what they did was they laid out these 4x4s and they staggered them in such a way that what would happen is the forklift would go and it would pick up a pallet, and then they'd run over this 4x4. And what you've seen is you've seen that payload on the front of those forks, it didn't go anywhere. Now, the opposite was true in the case of the solid tire. You know, they run over that, and what ends up happening is the load tips over.
Yeah.
But I think that radial is very important as far as payload protection is concerned. For an industrial application, if we're talking about protecting the casing of the tire, I think a case could be made that a bias ply product would be more suitable.
Yeah. You're saying that from the standpoint that the structure of a bias ply tire, a cross ply, a nylon, all the different names, the structure is built into the sidewall, not the tread.
That's correct.
So a radial pneumatic or pneumatics in general, great fit for outdoors, right? Where you're going to have variable items to drive over, but an indoor, a solid.
That's correct.
Do we know, did Michelin invent the radial pneumatic forklift tire with XZM, or was it Continental? I mean, there's a variety of folks that make it nowadays.
That I do not know.
No. Okay.
I do not know.
Great transition on that. We do a segment called Blast from the Past, Favorite Beads. What's a tire that is no longer produced that was one of your favorites?
Two tires. I was always a very, very big fan of the Bourguignon product.
Yeah.
Bourguignon was kind of known at one point in time as being the fix-all.
Uh-huh. Who made it?
It was made by a Sri Lankan company.
Of course, yeah.
Called Bourguignon, and later acquired by Trelleborg, and ultimately phased out is their branding plan, or their marketing plan took over. But Bourguignon product, it was a beast. It could fix any problem that existed. If you didn't have a solution, you threw a Bourgie at it.
It was one compound that just was kind of the end all be all, fix a variety of applications.
It was bad to the bone. Yeah, it was. And the other tire that I very, very, very much liked wasn't necessarily a pretty tire or a sexy tire, if you will, but the ITL Soft Tough with the convex sidewall.
Yeah,
that tire would run, and it would run well.
I agree. I think the ITL was a great product for a long time. It just had terrible marketing.
Yes, sir.
You know, I did the logo, the presentation, all of it. You couldn't absorb it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Sri Lanka. We could talk a little bit about Sri Lanka. You have been to Sri Lanka, yes?
I have not been to Sri Lanka.
Okay. We're gonna have to fix that. What's your opinion on why all the premium tires are built in Sri Lanka?
I think it's close proximity to. We got to be reminded that rubber is derived from a plant.
Yeah.
And that plant grows primarily in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, Phil, Big Dawg Energy. You've built tires, you've sold tires, you've done it all. What's a moment in your career where you felt like this is really what I want to do? This is my BDE, my Big Dawg Energy. I want to continue on this path.
You know, Joe, it's not an exciting story, but it's a true story. I went to my first sales meeting, and I'm in downtown Atlanta. I'm looking at this beautiful building, man. I mean, and it's lit up. It's gorgeous. And I said to my sales manager, I said, look at that building, man. That building's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And he says to me, he says, now, Phil, imagine working in that building for 20 years and trying to get a window view. You know, I love the tire business.
Yeah.
Specifically working in the forklift space, it's allowed me to go into all kinds of different manufacturing facilities. You get to see how different things are made. You're never forced to feel as though you're chained to a desk. The industry's taken me around the world, and it's just been a very, very rewarding career.
American dream.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Phil, anything else you think our viewers need to know for Material Handling 101?
I think what I would say is I would say that when you meet someone that you trust, you take that advice, whether that be a mechanic or whether that be, your sales rep that you've developed a long-term relationship or whatnot. We're here to kind of learn this together and figure it out together and whatnot. And, I think the story as far as tire guys are concerned is that, we all got a lot of help along the way. And we're eager to want to get out there and educate end users and help them save money. And, we're here to help one another.
Share the information we've gathered.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I will say this to the audience. Put your questions anywhere on the website, in the YouTube chat, in the socials. Phil will answer it on the next episode. Until then, Phil, let's air this one up.
Let's do it.
Thank you, sir.
Joe.
Around the Bead podcast, tire talk for trucking, mining, agriculture, and more. Your home for fleet solutions, aiming to inform, pioneer, and entertain the tire world in connected industries. Sponsored by East Bay Tire, keeping essential industries moving forward.